I have a coin in my hand right now. It is small. It is ordinary. It has been in my pocket so long I stopped feeling it. I have carried coins my whole life. Most people have. You pull them out, you set them down, you forget them. By the door. Nobody examines them. Nobody asks what they are, really, beyond their face value. Here is what I started asking. Not what the coin is worth, not who is printed on it. I started asking how old this habit is. How far back the object goes. How many hands have held something exactly like this one, on a bridge, on a road, over a river, and felt nothing unusual at all, because that is where the record stopped me. Beneath the Moselle River in Trier, Germany, workers dredging the riverbed in 1963 pulled up something no one expected. Not just ancient timber, not just stone. They recovered more than 32,000 coins from the riverbed, directly beneath a Roman bridge that has stood since before the birth of Christ. 32,000 coins. I was not the only one who noticed, not even close. When I started asking people about old bridges, about aqueducts, about the Roman infrastructure that still stands across Europe, I kept hearing the same thing. Not from historians, from ordinary people, from someone's uncle who visited Segovia and stood under the aqueduct and said, quietly, that it did not feel possible. From a woman in a forum who had walked across the Trier Bridge and looked down at the river and asked, to no one in particular, how something that old was still there. Not alarm, not conspiracy, just a quiet, unresolved feeling. The feeling that the official story is a little too clean, that the dates are a little too certain, that the people who built these things were a little too capable for the tools we have been told they had. Everyone has felt it. Almost no one has followed it. I followed it, and the further I went, the more I found that same quiet feeling had a very specific source. Not in the stone, not in the mortar, on the dates. In the numbers the record gives us for when these things were built. How did we become so certain about something so old? Here is what we have always been told. Ancient Roman engineers were extraordinary. They built bridges and aqueducts across Europe that have lasted 2,000 years. We know when they built them because we have the historical records. We have ancient texts. We have the inscriptions carved into the stone. When a scientific test throws up an unexpected date, experts explain it as a later repair job or a chemical contamination in the mortar. The structure is old. The anomaly is not. And I want to be honest, that explanation is not nothing. It rests on real evidence. Serious people built it from genuine research. Repairs did happen. Contamination does occur. These are not invented defenses. It accounts for almost everything. Almost. Here is the one thing it cannot account for. The oldest standing bridge in Germany crosses the Moselle River in Trier. Its foundation timbers were analyzed using dendrochronology, the most precise dating method available for organic material. The tree ring analysis returned a confirmed felling date of AD 71. But the Roman historian Tacitus, writing from direct sources, documents a major battle fought on that fully completed bridge in AD 70. The bridge existed before its own timber was cut, which means the coin you carry, the one that feels so ordinary, sits exactly in that gap, between what the record tells us and what the physical evidence shows. I thought it was one bridge, one anomaly, one gap that experts could plausibly explain away as a dating error or a misread of Tacitus. I was prepared to accept that. I have no investment in the bridge being wrong. Then I found it somewhere else. Not a similar thing, the same thing. In Segovia, Spain, there is a Roman aqueduct that has dominated the city skyline for nearly 2,000 years. For over a century, the global academic establishment dated it confidently to AD 98. That date was not guesswork. It came from one of the most respected epigraphists of the 20th century, Geyser Alfoldi, who spent years studying the empty peg holes drilled into the granite where bronze dedication letters had once been mounted. He mapped every hole. He measured every depth and diameter. He reconstructed the missing inscription and read it as a dedication to Emperor Trajan in AD 98. It was considered a triumph of historical deduction. In 2016, Archaeologists excavating beneath the aqueduct's foundations in the Plaza della Zogaggio found a single Roman coin sealed inside the original construction backfill. The coin was minted between AD 112 and 116. A coin cannot be buried in a foundation trench before it exists. The aqueduct could not have been built in AD 98. One brilliant scholar, decades of careful work, overturned by a coin. Two instances now. Germany and Spain. Different centuries, different methods, different researchers, the same gap in the same place, and a coin sitting at the center of both of them. I kept going. I had to. Because two instances can still be coincidence. Two gaps can still be explained. Two anomalies can still be filed away under human error and moved past. So I kept pulling the thread. In Skopje, North Macedonia, there is a brick and stone aqueduct of 55 preserved arches that has stood for centuries above the city. Historians attributed it confidently to the Byzantine Emperor Justinian I, who ruled in the 6th century. The attribution rested on the writings of Procopius, a 6th century historian who documented Justinian's building projects across the empire. The attribution was old, it was settled, it was taught. In 2014, an international team of scientists from the Ruđer Bošković Institute in Zagreb and the University of Georgia collected 6 mortar samples from the eastern facade of the aqueduct's pillars. They used a method called cryosonic separation to isolate pure lime lumps, the most reliable material for radiocarbon analysis, untouched by later contamination. The accelerator mass spectrometry results were consistent across all 6 samples. The mortar dated to between the 15th and 17th centuries, not the 6th century, the Ottoman era, 1,000 years later than the history books said. Same gap. Different countries, different centuries, different institutions. Same shape in the record. I moved further. In Álava, Spain, archaeologists attempted to date the lime mortars of the ancient fortress of Castillo de Portilla. The results came back prehistoric, not medieval, which the fortress clearly was, not Roman, prehistoric. The investigation revealed that local builders had used impure dolomitic limestone in their kilns. The incomplete burning created layered double hydroxide mineral phases inside the mortar. Those mineral phases chemically trapped ancient geological carbon, carbon with no radioactive signal left, carbon that was already thousands of years dead when the medieval masons mixed it into their walls. The mortar told a story that predated the fortress by millennia. The method was not wrong. The material had been contaminated in a way no standard laboratory pre-treatment could detect. This is not the shape of coincidence. Coincidence scatters, these clusters. In Trier, in Segovia, in Skopje, in Álava, different languages, different governments, different centuries. Different scientific methods return dates that the official explanation either cannot account for or explains only after the fact, only once the gap has already been found, only once someone has already looked. And you are connected to every single one of these places. Not metaphorically, the coin in your pocket exists in all of them. Ancient travelers carried coins across the Trier Bridge and dropped them into the Moselle as offerings. Coins sealed into the Segovia foundation trench ended a century of scholarly consensus in a single afternoon. The same object, the same habit, the same physical anchor connecting your hand to every one of these gaps in the record. You were not carrying something local. You were carrying something that has been present at every one of these moments, in every one of these places, for 2,000 years. Here is what the official explanation requires you to accept. Not as a conspiracy, as simple arithmetic. 4 sites, 4 countries, 4 separate scientific methods, dendrochronology in Germany, epigraphy and numismatics in Spain, accelerator mass spectrometry in North Macedonia, mineralogical petrography in a medieval fortress in Álava. Each one returns a date that contradicts the historical record, each one explained individually, after the fact, by a different localized reason. A repair job here, a contaminated aggregate there, a misread inscription, a chemical trap in the mortar. That is what the official explanation asks you to accept. Not one error, 4 errors, 4 separate, unrelated, localized errors. Each one discovered only after a scientific test forced the question. Each one explained by a different mechanism. Each mechanism is plausible on its own, none of them connected to the others in the official account. I am not saying someone coordinated this. I am saying the coordination problem does not have a clean answer inside the official explanation, and the official explanation has never been required to provide one. Because here is what the record also shows. These are not fringe sites. These are the most studied, most documented, most visited pieces of ancient infrastructure in Europe. The Trier Bridge is the oldest standing bridge in Germany. The Segovia Aqueduct is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The Skopje Aqueduct dominates the skyline of a capital city. These are not obscure ruins discovered last year in a field. These are monuments that generations of historians staked careers on dating, and in every single case, the physical evidence, when tested directly, returned a number the history books had not prepared for. If you have found this investigation useful, if you want to follow where this thread goes next, this is the moment to subscribe. Because what comes next is the part the official explanation finds hardest to answer. You are holding the output of that pattern right now, the coin in your pocket. Whatever process produced the gap between physical evidence and historical record across 4 countries and 4 scientific disciplines, it produced the same object in the same hands at the same moment. You were not issued something incidental. You were issued something that has been present at every one of these fracture points in the official story. The coin is not a metaphor. It is the most physically documented connection between your hand and the gap the record cannot close. Diego de Castañeda stands on a scaffold in Alcántara, Spain. It is 1575. He is a stonemason. He has a trowel in his hand. He was hired to perform minor repairs on pillar number 1 and the left buttress of the Roman bridge of Alcántara, one of the most monumentally preserved Roman bridges in the world, a structure whose original construction the record dates to approximately AD 106 under Emperor Trajan. Diego de Castañeda was not an archaeologist. He was not a historian. He was a working man hired to fill a crack and smooth a surface and go home. The record shows his name. It shows the years he worked, 1575 to 1577. It shows exactly which pillar and which buttress he touched. This level of specificity survives because the bridge of Alcántara was considered important enough that even its minor repair contracts were documented and preserved. He was not making a decision about history, he was doing his job. And his job, done exactly as it was designed to be done, introduced material into a 2,000-year-old structure that would sit alongside the original Roman mortar, indistinguishable to the eye, potentially invisible to a researcher who did not already know to look for it. Diego de Castañeda did not know what he was part of. The record does not show that anyone told him. He filled the gap he was paid to fill, and he went home. That is either the most ordinary thing in this entire investigation, or the most important. A single working man's trowel, applied to a single pillar in 1575, carrying the same mortar chemistry that has made dating these structures so complicated for every researcher who came after him. The record cannot tell us which it was, it only tells us he was there. I want to be honest with you about what I cannot prove, not as a disclaimer, as the most important thing I can say. I cannot prove that the chronological gaps across these 4 sites share a common origin. I cannot prove whether the misalignments between physical dating and historical record are the result of deliberate misattribution, or simply the accumulated weight of generations of researchers building on each other's assumptions, without returning to the physical material. I cannot prove what the coin was originally meant to do inside these systems beyond its stated purpose of exchange and offering. What I can show you is the pattern. What I cannot show you is the intent. And I want to be clear, a pattern without documented intent is not proof of anything. It is a shape in the record that the official explanation has not been required to account for. That is a different thing from proof. I know the difference. I am asking you to know it too. I am also aware that I have been looking at this material for a long time. Minds that look for patterns find them. I am not exempt from that. The Trier anomaly pulled me in first, then Segovia, then Skopje, then Alava. Each one felt like confirmation of the last. That is exactly how confirmation bias works. I am not outside it simply because I can name it. What I am asking you to do is not to trust my pattern recognition. I am asking you to look at the specific documented instances I have shown you and tell me whether the official explanation accounts for all of them. It does not account for all of them. That is not my conclusion. That is the gap. There is one thing, the record that connects the coin in your pocket to everything I have shown you. In the archives of the Rheinisches Landesmuseum in Trier, Germany, there are more than 32,000 ancient coins recovered directly from the waterlogged riverbed of the Moselle, pulled from the mud beneath the oldest standing bridge in Germany. They are held there now. They are accessible. They did not survive because someone protected them. They survived because the river sealed them in anaerobic mud before anyone thought to look, and by the time anyone did look, the coins were simply there, exactly where ancient travelers had dropped them, on their way across a bridge whose foundation timber the official record says was not yet cut. They exist. The gap exists alongside them. Both are in the same archive. Both are real. The coin is in your pocket. It was there before you watched this. It will be there after. It is small. It is lighter than you think something this old should feel. Nothing about it has changed. What has changed is what you know about where it came from. About the 4 countries where the physical evidence refused to match the date on the history book. About Diego de Castañeda standing on a scaffold in Alcantara in 1575 with a trowel, doing his job, becoming part of the problem every researcher after him inherited. About 32,000 coins sitting in a German archive, dropped by hands that crossed a bridge the official timeline says should not have existed yet. The coin was not created for you. It was created about you. It was processed into existence by a system that had a very specific account of when things were built, and who built them, and why, and no requirement to explain what happens when the physical material disagrees. The 32,000 coins in Trier remain, and if you hold one long enough, it tells you exactly how something becomes settled history, not through certainty. Through the completely ordinary act of no one ever being required to answer why the timber and the battle and the bridge cannot all be true at the same time. The coin has been in your life since before you could read. You have never been asked whether you wanted the timeline it came from. You have never been told what gets left out when the official story is the only story that gets to be ordinary. What would you do differently if you had been?